The Indie Council is in session. Welcome, everybody. This is a place for the leading voices from across the industry to gather to talk news, titles, and everything indie. I'm your Master of Ceremonies, Jill Grote, the Indie Informer. And today, we are joined by an excellent catnapper, Janet Garcia.
Hello. And meow.
If you want pictures to prove it, you can go onto Janet's socials because that's excellent. Also joining the council, newly returned traveler, Jenny Wyndham. Welcome back, Jenny.
Hello, it's good to be back.
So you returned and immediately Mike was like, I can't be on the show anymore.
I know. Oh my gosh, Mike. Just tell it to my face, please.
Coward.
Yeah.
And there was, we're not going to say anything because it's all secret, but we did talk about something else that we could have put as our intro. But Jenny told us she wants to reveal it later during Summer Game Fest. So that's your scoop. Go check it out. Go watch Wholesome, I imagine. Because, of course, Jenny's lovely face is going to be a part of that.
I can give a hint. The news won't be related to Wholesome.
Okay. The news will not be related to Wholesome.
Yeah.
Okay. New thing. Keep an eye out, everybody. Speaking of news, because Janet likes us not to meander in the beginning and just get into the show.
Always letting things go, Jill. Something I really respect about you. Never, never carrying a torch.
Like bridge, water under the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the first thing that we have to talk about is very big and very upsetting, and so I'm glad we got a chance to smile with everybody before jumping into the news. But I'm going to read the actual headline of this particular article by Christopher Dring at gamesindustry.biz because it says it all. IGN Entertainment acquires Eurogamer, Games Industry, VG 24/7, Rock Paper Shotgun, and more. New owner makes redundancies across gamer network profile. So, in case you don't know, redundancies is a word for layoffs. So, I'm going to jump into this and actually read some of it so that we can get a few more details. The interesting thing I really want to point out about this article is that this is an article from gamesindustry.biz, and I will put the link below. This is one of the outlets that got acquired, and that has had layoffs. So you have to understand what the tensions are under the surface of this particular article as I'm reading it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as I go on. But it starts off, IGN Entertainment has acquired the Gamer Network family of digital brands for an undisclosed sum. As a result of the acquisition, some redundancies have been made across the UK-based organization. Gamer Network's publications are gamesindustry.biz, Eurogamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, VG 24/7, and Dicebreaker. The business also holds shares in Outside Xbox, Digital Foundry, and Hookshot, which operates Nintendo Life, Push Square, Pure Xbox, and Time Extension. IGN Entertainment is the division of Ziff Davis that includes IGN, Map Genie, How Long to Beat, and Humble Bundle. It has acquired the websites from PAX and New York Comic-Con organizer ReedPop, which initially bought the Gamer Network business in 2018. Not included in the sale are UK-based events EGX or MCM or the digital brand Popverse, which remains with ReedPop. And that is the end of the article. Having been on a writer in the middle of an acquisition or layoffs, I really want to point out that this lovely writer here has written the entire second paragraph as a single sentence, and that single sentence points out the redundancies. And having been a writer where your higher ups wouldn't want you to write something, having this particular structure as in your article is extremely telling as to what the emotions might be going on in there, even though you can't say anything. Having an entire paragraph of one sentence pointing out that there are redundancies is definitely meaningful here. And we do know that this article doesn't specifically say, but we did find out across social media later that day that several of the games industry writers did get laid off, including Brendan St. Clair, who has been in the industry for over a decade. And a lot of the people
Mhm.
who got laid off that day had been in the industry for over a decade. So I want to bring this back to indies, and we're going to do that. But I do want to talk a little bit about, like, just for me personally, this particular news. Um, Anytime that you see a consolidation like this, it's really scary for the writers because obviously you're in danger of your job going away, but also if you have news journalists, anyone who is dedicated to writing about a particular thing, all owned by one of two companies, you're going to have real problems in the future. You're not going to get diverse voices. We're going to lose perspectives. We're losing people who have been in this industry for decades, who have that sort of that knowledge and uh, wisdom that is grown up over that kind of time. And you have to wait another 10 years for the next person to come in and learn all of that again, if they ever do, or if things just get lost. It also, like, this put me in a real funk for like the entire day. I'm still sort of feeling it because you forget that layoffs are a job thing. It is about your job, and you shouldn't be your job. But a lot of people who do this are their job. Like, it's not a great thing, but it is the truth that we don't do this for the money. A lot of us do this because it is our passion and it is something that we care so much about. So having a suit walk in and say you're gone, you lose a lot of your identity, and it does stick with you as a human being. So for me, and I can only really speak to my reaction to this, um, every time I see a layoff in my space of people I know who are great, who are talented, who even if I don't know them, who have done great work, uh, I feel the same feelings I felt back when the Game Informer layoffs happened. And it's a really weird feeling that never quite goes away. We talk about layoffs and how that must suck for the people affected, and even the people who are holding the slack for the people who are now gone. But it continues to stay with you no matter if you get another job and you are successful and you are enjoying that job. I think there's always a part of you that's a little traumatized by this. And that is now becoming a part of our industry. Everyone has been connected to a layoff at some point or another. And there's generational trauma that's happening
Mhm.
inside the video games industry. And what does that mean a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road? What kinds of. I I'm really afraid to think about what the structure looks like 10 years down the road. But um, to bring it back to indies, indie games, we have talked about this so much, are not covered widely. It's very hard to cover indie games for these bigger outlets because they need those clicks. And part of the reason they need those clicks is because of their upper structure insisting that the numbers always need to go up. And if the numbers go up, they're okay. But if they don't go up, then you start getting more layoffs. And when you see these sort of large corporate entities acquiring journalists, you worry that that's what more and more is going to happen. So as a person who covers indies, as a person who follows indies, as a person who makes indies, this should be a scary thing for you because all of those outlets, I mean, to some degree, some of them were not huge into indies, but there are a lot of outlets in that list that did really love covering indie games. I'm looking specifically at like Rock Paper Shotgun is an amazing place to go for indies, or it was. How it looks going forward is really going to be a question here. And I know I've kind of dominated the conversation, so I'm going to go ahead and scoot it over to anyone who wants to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that can be said and to like unpack from this. I think just, I mean, there's one thing that I think struck me or that I felt like I was reminded of seeing this is how consolidated the industry already is, right? Because I think a lot of
Mhm.
us, even myself, like I'm sure I learned at one point that Eurogamer, GI, VG 24/7 were all owned by the same company, but I kind of forgot that they were. And that's
Mhm.
very much done on purpose also. Like most readers don't know IGN's like owned by Ziff Davis, or that IGN Entertainment is something that owns like both IGN and How Long to Beat and Humble, and that IGN also like there's so many layers to it, and that's very much, done by design. Again, the things that we see happening in the games industry are also things that like plague society. And like if you look at, there's that saying of like you walk down the grocery store and it's the illusion of choice, when really at the end of the day you're still lining the pockets of the same people. Maybe slightly more innocuous feeling, but it's like, oh, I don't go to TJ Maxx, I go to Marshall's, and it's the same company. Like it's
Mhm.
a lot, so much stuff is the same stuff. And I think what is frustrating about seeing something like this, besides all the things that you mentioned, Jill, it's also the knowledge of what looms above. Because sure, like I mean, we've seen like, other articles like, oh, Digital Foundry's fine, it's like they're not, or like this thing's still gonna operate independently. And it's like, yeah, sure, because also like managing has its own burdens too. Like maybe they just want to rake in the money and also not have to compete as much. Like you don't have to worry about where do you rank in terms of this one guide. If like sure, rock paper shotgun outranked IGN, who cares? It's all Ziff money, so I don't think they're gonna end up caring, kind of thing. So it's that layer, but it's also the fear of when will something from the top come down. And again, this company was already owned by
Mhm.
other companies, so now we have like so many layers. It's like, imagine it's kind of the classic like too many cooks in the kitchen, right? And not to mention the in any business, like the bottom line is money. Even us, operating as individual creators, like unless you're literally just making it and you're like, I don't live off of it anyway, and I don't know, I have just cash lying around, and then I guess then you're purely there for the art. But we've talked about this a bunch. Like I monetize my work, I am here for money, not maybe not here specifically, but even this, right? We do this for free. But what does it give? It gives us, the
Mhm.
airtime. Maybe someone sees it, clicks through, checks out the website, checks out my page, checks out whatever like projects anyone's working on. So at the end of the day, it all does come back to that. I never want to pretend like we all exist outside of that, and like I always want to acknowledge the parts we all play in this. But because of that, it's like you're adding in more and more of that capitalistic burden that already wears on even small creators. You'll see people make concessions for almost nothing on very small scales. So imagine it on a larger scale, right? What's to stop, which the answer is nothing, Ziff Davis or IGN Entertainment or any of these parent companies from looking and saying, you know what, VG 24/7 isn't like doing the growth it needs or like whatever. And I think there's also this struggle, and you see this with consolidation in the development and studio space, where there's that hope that it can be good or it can help like bolster things up. But I think when it's done at such a large scale as something like this acquisition, which we have no idea the finances behind it, it I feel like you only get kind of the negative. It's like, oh well, on
Mhm.
one hand, like usually it's sold to you as like after the redundancy stuff is over, you're sort of shielded from like layoffs is sort of what is attempted to be sold to you. But we know that's not true. We've seen layoffs even at IGN, which granted IGN will say, oh yeah, but that's like such a rarity, like we went so many years without layoffs. But again, like what that comes at a cost too. And what's that cost? It's like, well, maybe we're a little bit less aggressive with other things, maybe certain areas of growth with verticals, maybe with certain like types of coverage, maybe with things like raises or promotions or hiring additional people. Like even when things are good, always know that you don't know what's going on under the hood or behind the scenes. Like,
Mhm.
and I think one of the issues here is while it could be sold as like you won't have to worry about like your numbers as much because you're in this big like team that it has a lot of success. IGN is number one in games media. We can argue about why or whatever, like that's fact. Like you type in a game name, boom, IGN's in the search bar. Reviews, IGN leads the company. Guy, everything dominates everything.
Mhm.
And yet, I think a lot of what ends up happening with the portfolio this vast is it ends up there is still so much of that hesitation. There's always such a desire from companies to desire growth and number go up from what their workers and their companies provide, but that energy doesn't come back the same way. It's like it'd be one thing if we were seeing massive perks and ridiculous, great
Yep.
payment structures and things like that. And I'm not here to speak on, to pocket watch any of these employees or anything like that, but we don't quite hear that narrative. We don't quite see that from these acquisitions. So I think more so what it gives is protection for the companies, unfortunately. I think even more so than what we see on the studio side. I think also because the studio side is usually less massive. I know there's exceptions like Xbox getting Bethesda is like wild, but look how hard that was to do. This is much more like, I don't know, quick to gather. And I think the industry is so small too. I think the reason a lot of people were very up in arms about this is we already have a very tiny, minuscule, dwindling, faint of a light of an industry, and then it's like, whoop, and now this is all underneath Papa Ziff. And I think that's all of those things are what drive frustration and fear and anger. And I think it's easy for IGN Entertainment or Ziff or whoever is going to say like, oh, like it's going to be fine. It's going to stay the same. Sure, but one who's telling you that, and two, today, right? Like today doesn't guarantee tomorrow, and it. I don't know. You can see things like ending up affecting other things. I think even like on, I'm trying to look at. Let's look at Elden Ring. That's a good example. Okay, so even something like Elden Ring, right? IGN Entertainment owns How Long to Beat, and it's like How Long to Beat mostly functions the same. But if you scroll a little bit down, there's like the IGN guides there because at the end of the day, it all comes back to that. So it does have maybe not the most ridiculous editorial effect or the most detrimental editorial effect, but there are ways where it's the same sort of to the untrained. So I don't know. I think that's all. Those are some of the first reactions I had in seeing this, which is holy cow, Gamer Network already owned a lot of things, and oh my god, now IGN owns it. So it's like this huge
Mhm.
cluster of companies where it's like, and also Ziff owns a lot of companies. Ziff don't just
Yep.
own IGN, so like
Mhm.
ain't nothing stop. I mean, again, I think IGN Entertainment is bringing in some good coin. I feel like, but I don't, in the wider portfolio of Ziff Davis, I don't have great confidence in anything either. Like the idea of what do they say about putting the eggs in the basket, right? Don't put all of them in one basket. And this is one big corporate basket.
Yeah.
Also,
Mhm.
I think the last thing I want to say before letting Jenny, you get your thoughts out too, is there's also the fear of like, where do you go, right? If you're not happy at one of these sites, they're all owned by the same
Mhm.
parent company. So again, how much are they all like slacking each other? Not really, right? But there is still that idea of that can have effects too. You leave VG 24/7 to go to, I don't know, IGN. It's like that's still underneath the same thing, and I think that also gets kind of messy because there's less diversity there to even like move around if you're just moving between the same sister sites, which was already happening a lot before this, and now it's kind of tenfold in a way.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't have too much to add in terms of like that corporate greed and just the layers upon layers of like essentially being able to pass the buck now that they will be able to do, and that how obfuscated this is all going to be for us as like consumers of the games, even for people in the industry. I feel like everything is just going to be this confuddled mess because it is all now basically under like one giant parent company. I feel like we've seen this with like Microsoft and like all these other acquisitions on the game studio side, and seeing it on the journalist side is just it's just unnerving and really off-putting. Like it's making me feel very uncertain about the industry at this point in time. I think kind of drilling almost more back to the human, like individual level, I see this is an industry already where people are being exploited for their passion, exploited for the fact that like we get to work on video games, we get to talk about them. It's really exciting. It's really cool. But that fear of finally getting an opportunity and then holding on to that opportunity. And now, because you are essentially like, if you're working for a company that's under Ziff, like, even though I'm sure they will have different operating, like, they'll operate separately to an extent, like you were saying. They all still are under the same umbrella. So it's like if you are not working well somewhere, like if you lose your job, hopefully you can get a position at another Ziff company, but that feels just like really sketchy to me. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. And so I think this idea of like people it's directly working against a lot of the unionization efforts that have been happening over
Yes.
this past year, and I think that's what's also really frustrating to see is because we've seen such awesome progress with unionization. IGN, I think, was it recently they had, all of that movement, and now I'm wondering like what's going to happen to that. This is a direct response to people trying to advocate for better working conditions, and because they control so much, they're going to try to consolidate that power, probably to push back and not give as much leeway to employees that they do have, which that's a whole other thing. It's like how many salaried employees are there and how many contract workers are there going to be? Like we're going to be an
Yeah.
industry of contractors, and we're already an industry of contractors, so even more so. And that's just not sustainable to a healthy industry. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you're talking I mean, it's so interesting. Janet, it came up when Janet was talking, and I was trying to hold on to the thought. We already know how Ziff Davis deals with unionizing
Hmm.
because IGN did all of that work to unionize. They were recognized voluntarily, and then there were layoffs.
Hmm.
Um, so we already know that this is a company that does not take that sort of thing seriously, even if they like the press of saying that they voluntarily recognized IGN, and whether or not they let that happen in the things that they've just acquired is questionable at best. And talking about putting all your eggs in one basket, you now have almost you have so many gaming outlets under a basket or in a basket which is known as a hostile place for unionizing.
Hmm.
So the hope that IGN sparked with that movement is somewhat smothered by the fact that maybe these companies aren't going to have that kind of success, and even if they do have success, that their parent company may not recognize it when they don't feel like recognizing it. So yeah, it is a very harsh place to be in. I also kind of want to talk about like industry literacy. I don't know if there's a term
Hmm.
that I'm looking for exactly. I am surprised the extent to which people on the internet, and I know no one watching, I'm sure, but in case you run into these people, the extent to which people are blaming IGN, the writers, for this acquisition and what's happening and the layoffs. And your reaction to this, one hopes, should not be, well, I am not going to read IGN anymore, or I am going to.
It's gonna be pretty hard not to read IGN anymore when they own
Yeah.
everything.
So, like, IGN Entertainment and IGN, the outlet, are two different things. I want to be very clear about that. If you want to support the people who are going through this, support the writers. Don't go after the writers for saying, "Hey, you
Hmm.
guys are always talking about how like layoffs are bad and corporate consolidation is bad and now you go and do this." It's like, "Well, the writers actually had absolutely no control over their parent companies acquiring things and probably had no idea what's happening until very closely before we did." So,
If
go
that, I
out.
don't know. Like, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
like,
I
they
have,
might have
I have no
figured it
inside
out when
knowledge
we did.
of that.
Yeah. We have no idea, but, like, it's not terribly uncommon for people to learn this stuff with the
Yeah.
public.
Hmm.
So go out there and be kind and be empathetic, and remember this is not just a situation of, like, they say when you have a crime committed against you, like a burglary or something, like, that happens and it's scary and there are financial things to worry about, but like the fear and the trauma that goes along with that stays with you for a long time, in a lot of different ways. Getting laid off and living in an industry that is constantly, you're in constant fear of losing your job, or maybe you have lost your job, um, and you are going to try to do everything you can to keep your job because you always kind of have that hanging over you. There's a sword of Damocles always there. That is
Nice
a
reference.
thank you.
That's great.
Continue.
Um, you know, it is a hard thing to live with as a human being. So just keep that in mind for all the people who are uh, under now the IGN Entertainment umbrella, and also keep in mind it makes it so hard because what's happened is we've lost a lot of people who are very talented. Those people are not just going to go away. When you have 5, 10, 15, 20 years in this industry, what are you going to do? Are you going to just quit and go somewhere else? No. So a lot of people do tend to jump back into the space as their own independent thing, and that's great. And I love seeing that. We are all fans of like MinMax. This was one thing that's done that. I've done that. Um, the problem becomes when we have so many layoffs and so many talented people. There is a sort of um, cluster of us now,
Mm.
and it makes it hard for catching people, catching attention from people. So a lot of people who were fans, I mean, again don't know anything, but if all of the people laid off in this wave band together and make something, we're gonna get a whole new thing that's gonna be totally worth watching. It's gonna be great, and it'll be worth supporting financially or just with clicks and views. But I mean, I bet y'all can think of like probably a number of places that you follow and you support financially or support by just following and watching that have this exact story. And at some point you get to a, a breaking point. You can't support everybody in this industry, even though you would like to. So it creates a horrible place of competition as well for anybody who is thinking. It becomes less and less viable for people who are getting laid off to go off and do their own thing and create their own little media place where the big guys can't get us. Um, it's just it is very hard to imagine what this looks like in 10 years, is what I was saying previously, not just because all of the like big corporate outlets are going to be owned by a handful of people, but all of the independent used to be corporate journalists are now all, you have to pick and choose who you're going to be able to support, and I hope that you support everyone. Like, what do you say? Like, I
Sorry,
want
that's
I
not
want
funny, but like it is because it's like,
yeah.
how many ways can I split this $10? But I mean,
Yeah, like
yeah, I mean, you're yeah, it's a competitive space, and it's always been a competitive space whether you're going traditional or not. Surely, yes, I think it's only gotten. Well, I think it's kind of a mix. I think I do think we're kind of in a downturn in the sense that we've had the solo sort of surgeons, and now we're kind of like too many things are almost crumbling at once where it's like, oh, there's not really like routes anymore. There's more like a wall you come crashing through more so
right.
than a route. But I mean, two things I want to touch on with what you said. One with the IGN editorial versus IGN corporate. Yes, totally different. There's no need to when you're adding IGN, you're just adding like one social media. I mean, not that they only have one social media manager, but the social media manager person. It's like, okay, like, yeah, like keep that in mind. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
go
Those
around
people
just.
are
I also
almost
just
built
wouldn't
as
go
a
around
moat.
adding brands like that. It's just I think it's a little weird. Like I don't even do that with kind of anything. It's like, hey, I don't know, you could just scream into the void if you like. But yeah,
Yeah.
those are different things. And of course, again, IGN, whether it's corporate or editorial, has always been a bit of a punching bag because it's so big and successful that people, people hate mainstream stuff, right? No one wanted that YouTube that YouTube album on their phone. It didn't even matter what this album sounded like. Is the album good? I don't know. I didn't listen to it because I also was like, I don't want the YouTube album on my phone. So I think that just kind of comes with that bit. I think too, like, I mean, whether for me personally, like, I mean, Jill, I totally respect you being like, hey, like, support, like, read the articles. I think consume what you want to consume, and I don't think you need to. It's all corporations, so I don't necessarily think you drawing any specific corporate line in the sand. That is up to you on how you want to consume things. I think if you want to support those writers and creators. Definitely, like, I think following, boosting their stuff if they have solos, because a lot of people have solo stuff even though they're at a corporate
Mhm.
place, which is smart because
Yep.
it's job security.
Mhm.
Go, if they're out there streaming or doing whatever, like, I think I like to go as direct as possible when I can, because unfortunately, I would love to think that your work doing really well would be compensated by where you work. It probably isn't. I think they pay you what they pay you, and it doesn't really matter how good you do, is the thing with a lot of jobs. Again, not just IGN or editorial, just in a lot of jobs in general. Like, the people going above and beyond or like killing it, those people are rarely rewarded in any way. Sometimes it's kind of the opposite. It's a fucked up world we live in. Like, that just is what it is.
Mhm.
I think as far as the solo route, I'm a little bit more optimistic, I think. I think I still really believe anyone can do it. I do think only it's tough, because one thing I want to like shout out is that it really sucks if you're someone who's like hardcore capital J journalist, because those people aren't necessarily like gaining the social media clout that you need. Like, you need clout to be solo. Like, you need eyes,
Mhm.
attention, marketing,
Yep.
social media presence. And some people don't want to do that stuff. And I get not wanting to do that stuff because it's not everyone's cup of tea. And it sucks that they're like, I just want to be able to do my job and do what I do well. I don't want to have to go this other route necessarily. But one, I've seen people succeed on that too. I mean, I don't know how well like Stephen Totillo's doing, but like, he has more of that writing background, and is kind of doing his own thing in that writing vertical, and isn't exactly like, maybe he's making TikToks and I don't know, but I don't think he is. I still firmly believe that despite there being more of us, and there probably will only be more of us going forward with how the landscape is, we each only need so much money. In the grand scheme of how many people are on Earth, it's not that
True.
much. It's not that
Mhm.
much. So I don't know. That's sort of my perspective on it. Like, I think I I hope, I wish the best of luck to everyone affected as usual, but um I don't know, pursue what makes you happy, do what makes sense for you. Again, sometimes you are forced to make certain decisions based on your lifestyle and your circumstance, and everyone has different responsibilities, and that number might be way higher for you than it is for me, so it's like too hard to like, I get it. But I think, I don't know, this is very cheesy, but I think if you move wholeheartedly towards something, like, it will come back to you in a good way. And I think the thing that I was quick to tweet out about following this, which I always do for layoffs, is like, the thing I hate is, I know there's people out there at their job that they can't stand, but they're happy to have, because again, it's a terrible landscape. Like, to leave a job, it's like, it feels so stupid. Like, if it's like you're not going to sell it to anybody, but you can sell it to me and I'll buy it every time. I am always down for people to leave their job. I don't care where you work. I don't care if you work at Walgreens or Wall Street or Mashable or wherever. Like, I'm down, because you probably have your reasons already. Like, it's kind of like when you ask somebody like, "Oh, I don't know if I should break up with my partner." You probably should, because I've never, like, if you have to ask that question, not trying to I don't know,
Yeah.
bring up the stuff for anyone that's listening, but it's like, I think deep down a lot of us know what we need to do and where we need to go. Take with that what you will, but it's like, I think that's something that really frustrates me in the industry too. There's just a lot of, it's a tough job that doesn't pay well, that doesn't, it's a thing you love that doesn't love you back, and it's like, it is that for everyone to different degrees. We have different positions and privileges and things that we have going for us or going against us, but that is ultimately what the industry always has been and always will be, most likely. So I don't know. I'm still having a good time here,
I like
but it
how you
is.
started this with saying, "I think I'm more
I when
optimistic."
I think, well, that's the thing. It's like, my perspective on myself is that I'm so aware and embracing the darkness that there's like light again. It kind of goes. It's like when you swing the swing
Mhm.
set. It's like I've looped all the way around. Where I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, you probably will lose all this. Let's start funneling in. You're in a job you hate. Start putting away everything you have and just jump. And I don't know, if you fuck it up, just use that money. I don't know, do something else. You'll figure it out. But like, I think, yeah, I don't know. I think people know what's up. So it's like, yeah, it pains me that the industry continues to go further and further in those directions, and I see people affected from, I think, so many different sides of it. But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. We're
I mean,
here. We're here
it's
and we're
fun.
still here.
We're here. I mean, Janet, 100%, that's my life journey. I moved on from a corporate 9 to 5 to go do this and had no uh chance of success, really. Um but I hesitate to tell anyone to do that. because your bills come whether or not you're enjoying what you're doing. But also right now, because of all of the layoffs and things, the pool of people who are going in for jobs are people who have been doing this job for 10 years. So imagine going into, you wouldn't, because most interviews are going to be over the phone and remote and on video and stuff. But like, imagine going into like the IGN corporate office and you're sitting down and you've got your um, resume in your hand and you got your suit on, you're looking professional, you're feeling yourself. You're
This is
like, yeah, I'm
1982.
definitely going to
It's
get this
like
job.
there was no office,
Like you
Jill. They
took
shut it down in San Francisco. They closed it.
you took I don't know, art history in college. Is this me? Am I
It
imagining
might be
myself?
you.
I was gonna say, is this
Jill, do you
your
want a job
origin
at IGN?
story?
Because I can
And
ask
you're
some
like,
people.
so like, yeah, I love video games and I want to write about them. And then you look around at like other people in their suits and their resumes, and their resume has like, I've done actual editorial work. I've been running my own website for 5 years. I've been on a podcast for 10. I've actually been the man, like I did this job before I was laid off. This is my actual job. Like, those are people you're going to not beat for the most part,
You might if it's an
unless
associate job. If it's
if
an
it's an
associate
associate
position.
job and they want, and the up and ups want to hire cheaply, but then
I
you
mean,
are
they always
also
want to hire
entering,
cheaply.
they
They
always
yeah,
want to hire
they always
cheaply,
wanna
so
hire
they
That's the
might.
cheaply.
secret, Jill. They always want to hire cheaply.
But like, that's the system we're in. It's an exploitive system when you are in this sort of position where one mega corporation owns everything because they can afford to undercut everybody's prices and everybody takes less. And see, this is why I was in a funk yesterday.
Oh no, I mean it's
So,
dark stuff. Like I'm not,
yep.
like
Mhm.
yeah, it's again, we get one of these like every
Every
couple
other
weeks,
week.
really. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
just yeah, so,
I don't know, but I
I
feel
wish
like
good things could have happened from that.
Okay,
Like imagine
Jenny.
everyone
End
gets
us
a
on
raise.
end us on a
Yay!
positive note, Jenny.
a
Please take us
positive
back into the light.
I was gonna say, I don't know how positive this is, but
I'm
I
ready.
think, well, okay, because one thought that I keep coming back to that I think both of you referenced is like this losing this much knowledge means we're essentially like constantly resetting the cycle on our industry. Like
Yeah.
again, I know that this was a few weeks ago, a few episodes back, but like I had folks when we were doing the Gamergate 2 episode message me and be like, "Wait, could you send me some links about Gamergate 1?" Because I had no idea what that even was. And I was like, it's kind of wild because these folks are people who are in the industry and I don't expect them to know it, but it's hard because it's like if we have journalists who are kind of these archivists of, you know, what's going on, like journalists should have that experience and they should
Yeah.
have that repertoire to draw from, and it's like we're like cutting them off at the knees if we're constantly forcing them to not have jobs. So that was just one thought, just which is something that we've talked about at length before. But I think it is like I agree with both of you. I think it's hard for me to tell people like just totally leave your job. I'm generally for it, but also I'm like, it's really hard for me to give that advice because of how much this industry does run on cloud and how much it runs on who do you know, how well do you know them, and like what can you sort of like leverage to help get you into the places that make you more visible. And because this is just an industry that runs on familiarity, like once you're familiar with folks, I feel like you can be pretty set, but it just takes that time. And so I think just as like for anyone who is hearing this, feeling a bit disheartened, but still wanting to dip their toes in, like make that website. I think Janet, you pretty
Yeah.
much every
Yeah.
time layoffs happen, you post this, like make the website, just start writing, write about the games you're already playing, like just build up those skills and like participate while also doing something else that will help you pay those bills. Cause like
Yeah.
I know, yeah, like you were saying, Jill, bills got to get paid. And it's unfortunate, but it's a reality. Like we don't want you to go bankrupt or like defunct on anything. And so, yeah, I think it's a matter of being smart and understanding like the game that we all have to play to be in this industry to a certain extent. And depending on just like what capacity you want to be in, you're going to have to play that game harder, or you'll have more freedom to do what you want. you know?
Mhm.
So it's just knowing yourself ultimately.
Also, I feel like this I shouldn't even mention anything because it's like I feel like that was pretty positive, and but I have to bring this up. I have to bring this up because I
Do
looked it
it.
up and I didn't have time to mention it. Ziff Davis owns companies/brands across 7 categories.
Mhm.
Category like, and underneath all of those categories, there are 3 to 4 things listed. And underneath each of those, it doesn't even really fully go down because this does not have like How Long to Beat, which How Long to Beat is like a tiny, tiny company, but it's like still in there. So it's like each of these has like probably something also inside of it. So it's just
Mhm.
like, yeah, I feel like Ziff Davis was like, how much does the earth cost? And they're just buying stuff. I don't know, but yeah, I don't
I
know.
will say there was at one point, like about a couple years ago, I was offered a job at a company. I won't say which company, just to, yeah, but good paying job. Awesome. I was like, this is great. Did some research, and I kid you not, I found out Ziff Davis owned it. And I was like, actually,
Mm.
I feel like I feel like this is just gonna maybe lead into something insecure. And literally 6 months later, the position that I was going to accept that I didn't, that someone else accepted, canned.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like,
Sometimes well, actually, no, this is you. You saved you from yourself.
You
That's
yeah,
did.
yeah.
wild. That's a flex.
Yeah.
No, yeah, yeah. When this is
Okay.
done, tell us what it was because we're really
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the comments below. Everybody just
Can you imagine? We gotta paywall it. Give us $5 and you can get just random lore. Oh
I think
man.
that's an excellent way to wrap up that particular conversation. Um, let's talk about things that we are looking forward to in the future. Summer Game Fest. Summer Game Fest is coming up, and because Summer Game Fest is coming up, it starts, I believe, June the 7th is the kickoff showcase. So we only got a couple of weeks left. And because it is coming up so soon, we have a lot of not news. Things are getting quieter and quieter because people are keeping their news for Summer Game Fest. But the fun thing that I have been seeing across my socials every day are little like hints of what to expect as we get there. And for me, it's the indie stuff that gets us going. That's why we're all here because we like talking about indies. So the biggest ones that I have come across, I don't know if anybody else has any examples, but UFO 50 is going to be at Day of the Devs, and that is a sort of collaboration effort from a bunch of different cool indie developers, including Derek Yu, who everyone will know from Splunky. And the game is sort of like a fictional 80s game company has come together to make a greatest hits, essentially. Uh, but they're all new games and they're all from different creators doing amazing different things. And we are going to see that apparently at Day of the Devs this year. So make sure to check out Day of the Devs because Day of the Devs is going to have a lot of great stuff no matter what. I also saw a hint that Citizen Sleeper 2 is going to be showing up at the PC Gaming Show. That's a lot of fun. Spilled is in the Wholesome Direct. One of us might know more about that, but she's going to keep quiet, I imagine. Uh, Spilled was actually, when I first saw it, it was being crowdfunded. So it successfully crowdfunded and is now showing up in different things. I'm very excited to see it. And then the Access Unseen is in the Guerrilla Collective. Um, I remember that there is a history back to the Access Unseen. The creator is somebody, and I can't remember who they are, but look it up.
Everybody's somebody,
So
Joe.
everybody's somebody, yeah. But it's got a really cool legacy behind it, and it looks really good as well. So you should go check that out. Guerrilla Collective um, is the only one that's on June 6th, I think. I don't think there are any other June 6th thing. I think it's the earliest one. So keep an eye out. Keep an eye out for, I mean, Summer Game Fest is going to be a lot of fun. There are a lot of showcases that are not referenced here because they're not giving me hints of what's coming up in the future. But there are a lot of indie specific and kind of indie adjacent things that are happening around the big events. So keep your eyes on them because they're going to be amazing. A lot of cool stuff is going to come out of this. And ultimately, when I'm down and I'm in a funk and I need to feel better about life, indies is really what does it for me. So let's all take a moment just to be happy. Enjoy that these games exist and they are coming, and we're gonna enjoy playing them when they come.
Yay!
This is your moment of happiness with
This
the
is your
Indie
moment of
Council.
happiness. It is your
Not too much
we give you
now.
we give you permission for this moment. Pure joy, happiness. Banish all the dark for a second. Just be happy. Moving on for topic of the show.
No, I want to be happy.
You can't, Janet. We only have 1
Damn.
minute to
I
be
knew
happy.
it. I knew. That's what I've been telling people, but okay, go ahead.
No, let's all be happy with the topic of the show is the council's indies for all occasions. I recently had a member of my community jump in and ask for road trip games, which, everyone jumped in. Being like indie communities are also fun because you get a lot of people jumping in and they have very different interpretations of how they like to play games and what games they think of as different types of games. And I was like, hey, let's go ahead and do this for people. So I've kept all of my answers. We've all kind of kept our answers a secret. But I have little notes onto what I was thinking about each of these categories. So I'm going to say a category and we're just going to talk about the games that we would put into those categories, which are our favorites. And they'll be from then on out official council games for each category. So the first up, what are the Indie Council's official games for traveling? I'm going to jump in first and just talk about when I am traveling, what games, like what sort of criteria I have for games. Typically, I need, when traveling, games that are high thinking, things that
Oh,
make me like really brain teasers or like
Interesting.
really get into things, but also really low movement and really low dialogue because
Mhm.
I get motion sick so bad.
yeah.
So if I'm in a car, I cannot play a game that is like movement at all. So it has to be kind of staying completely still, and I want it to be pulling my brain in so I can't think about anything else. So for me, I have them written down. Hold on. Yeah. One that just came out recently that I think would be really good is Paper Trail. If you've
Mm.
not seen this
Mm.
game, it is really low movement. Essentially, you're kind of playing on a paper that is origami folded, and you are folding this paper in different ways to allow your character to get through things or to discover things. And it is so deeply puzzling and challenging, but also thoughtful, and it'll keep you going through whatever your travel situation is, whether you are on a plane or on a road trip or whatever. But it's exactly the kind of thing I would want. Janet, what is your traveling game?
So, also me frantically googling, like, is this an indie game? I was making sure. Like, I don't think Via Gorilla has done anything that wasn't indie. Though they were published by Team 17, which is whatever, right?
Yeah.
For me, the first one I thought of, which is it's funny. It's like it's almost the opposite of what you described. I also get really motion sick, and yet when I think of like my favorite indie experience I've had on the go, it was Yoko's Island Express,
Yes.
which is like
Ooh,
Oh, I
I feel
love
like
it.
would be maybe nauseate because but you know what I think worked for me with Yoko's Island Express. I'm also like weird with car sickness. Like I can get car sick in a very short drive. I think if there's a lot of stop and go traffic, but I can also like be fine for a really long drive. So I think it is more of a stop and go thing. Or maybe it's like, you know how they sell those like car sick goggles that have like little liquid on the bottom? And it's like, oh, because when
Mhm.
you move your head, like it
I
moves. Maybe
yeah.
something about Yoko's movement like was soothing. I don't know. But Yoko's Island Express, if you're not familiar with it, it is like this I guess it is like Metroidvania, technically.
Technically, yeah.
Pinballvania. It's like
Pinball.
it's like an adventure pinball game. So, but it's to clarify, like it's like left to right side scroll style, and you are traveling as like a little bug of some sort, and you have like a little ball with you, and you're like bouncing around. So this kind of almost like you're adventuring, and while you adventure, you're going like left to right or jumping around or like latching onto things to swing quickly to propel yourself to another spot. Funnily enough, kind of similar to some Surmounts gameplay,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit less slippery. Like Surmount is very much like, ooh, goofy physics game, ha ha. And this is more like tightly made. Which again, that's what Surmount's going for, so it's not a slight to Surmount. But they also like add these structures that are very reminiscent of pinball, to the point where some parts have like paddles, some parts have um the like that metal wiring that like the not wiring, but like that those metal like racks that the ball like comes out of. Like they have
Mhm.
those like in the level, and then they have like parts of the environment that are like squishy where you can like bounce off of. So it's this fun, fantastic kind of Metroidvania pinball puzzle platformer that's just really joyful and really lovely. It came out back in 2018. Again, I feel like people know Yoko's Island Express. This isn't exactly a deep cut, but for me, this was what I look for when I'm traveling, if possible. And I feel like it's hard to capture maybe in like a flight where it's like not super long. It's kind of like uncomfortable unless you like pay a lot of money. Turns out if you pay a lot of money, flying's really fun again. If you don't, it's kind of sucks if you do it often enough. But I did this on a road trip that I took from Chicago to Florida to go to Disney for the first and only time I've been to Disney Florida. And it was just exactly what I needed at the time, because it was just like a fun game that wasn't really that topically relevant at the moment that I was playing, that was just joyous and chill. Like for me, Jill, like I look for something a little bit less. I'm not looking for mental stimulation when I'm traveling. I'm looking for like a brain fry, but like this kind of provides like a step above like a brain fry, because it is a little bit more puzzly. So it's like not fully deep fried, but it's a little crispy. This will give you like a nice crispy brain. Yoko's Island Express, if that's what you're looking for
Okay.
on your
Yep.
travels. That's my recommendation.
Perfect. And Jenny, what is your travel game?
Um, I am less thinky. I cannot do narrative games. I cannot do like things that require me to think deeply. I don't want to play when I'm traveling. I want to be able to zone and just like not think. And also like if you're in a car, if you're on a road trip with folks, being able to like look up and talk is really important to me, or just like not have to pay attention super hard. I feel like this is so basic, but games like Stardew Valley, honestly, Stardew is like my
Mhm.
airplane game. Like, I will always go in, I'll download other games. Like, even recently, I was like, I downloaded Lorelei. I was like, oh, yeah, I have my Steam Deck. I can continue my play in Lorelei. I ended up playing more Stardew Valley. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like I can't get away from it. Just the ability to like play, there's new like content continuously. You're always going to have to more to plant, more to like do. You don't have to think. And I think there's an element of familiarity to me that I really enjoy, which actually goes into like the next topic a little bit too. But yeah, like farming sims for me are my like travel game, because you can just play them forever and they just keep going. So yeah, Stardew, Coral Island, all that good stuff.
I think I have a game to talk to you about later on. Bum,
Yes. Oh
bum,
my gosh.
bum. Okay, we're moving on to our next category, which is the sick game. What game do you want to play? What games is like a big bowl of chicken noodle soup for you while you are sick? Um, I have a tendency to still think about games and writing about games when I'm sick. It's not a good tendency. So on my website, I have a couple of articles that I wrote while sick. Being like, what do I want to play right now? So these are like fresh and honest opinions. Um, for me, I want very low thinking. Like I'm not paying attention to anything. I want it to be so low effort. I'm not coordinated. I'm not feeling anything, but it has to be super super engaging so that I don't think about the misery that my body is in. I'm such a baby when I'm sick. So, for me, ultimate sick games are going to include like I think it's going to be a free bingo spot for the whole of us here to say Goobies. I think all of us are okay with saying Goobies for this one.
That's a
Yeah,
good
for
one.
sure.
So as a not easy give me, I'll say Super Space Club is one of my very
Okay,
good sick
yeah, yeah,
games. You don't have to think too much. It's a lot of bright colors, beautiful, like laid back but upbeat music, and just shooting pew pews, seeing cool things happen. Like it's perfect.
for sure. Yeah,
Janet.
that's a good one. I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, I think I don't know, you gotta be if you're like out here playing like hardcore puzzle games when you're like
Oh
ill,
my
like
gosh.
that's
Right.
You're
next
on a
level
different
puzzle
That's
level.
a
sicko.
yeah.
You're like, I live this. It's a lifestyle. Like I kind of respect it, honestly. Please let us know if that's you, because that's like just the perfect kind of unsettling that I want to hear.
Mhm. Mhm.
For me, it's
Probably Mike out there.
I
Too
know
bad he's not here.
when I said unsettling, I too thought of Mike. Like literally, like that's you know how there's like the word like what do you picture like when you see an app when you think apple? It's like when I
Uh-huh.
say unsettling, I see Mike. I see Mike's head just staring back with the
We
candle,
miss
the
you,
bank
Mike.
candle in his hand. Um, yeah, friend of the show, Mike. Anyway, for me, I kind of like to go almost in between because if I'm when I'm super sick, I like don't. It's like, oh, I'd love to just like play a game, but it's like sometimes I don't have the energy to do that, and I don't play anything. So for me, when I'm in the good enough to like be alive, but not good enough to go back to work, that's where I cook. That's where I operate. And for me, what I like to do actually is to just do like a more completionist run. Like
Mm.
I'm gonna give a Forbidden AAA example real quick. Then I'm gonna go into the indie versions of these. Cause like when I had COVID most recently, I think that was the most recent time. Oh, I think most recently I did like Starfield. I was like, F it, like we're gonna beat the hell out of this game. And like no, like I have nothing to do. I'm just gonna do this. Before that, I was just like flying around in Horizon, getting the map to defog, which you can't fully do, by
Mm.
the way.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was hoping
yeah.
they would fix that. Anyway, right. So on that note, I want to just I'm kind of also just doing a little bit of a cluster. I'm cheating here of just kind of mentioning shutting out games that I have enjoyed playing more thoroughly. I'm not a big completionist, partially because of the industry. Again, it's like I'm better off just moving on to another game and covering more games than like
Mm.
falling super into one game. But I think titles like Chicory, I really loved getting the platinum for that game.
Yeah.
Little Kitty Big City, I did not 100%, but I think that'd be like a lovely one to like, hey, let's get all the little hats, let's hang out some more. It's Cult of the Lamb is another one that I have yet to
Mhm.
platinum, but I'd
Oh,
love
yeah.
to. I put a lot of hours into that. Just kind of doing a more completionist run of that game. So I think really my recommendation for this is whatever you're either done or almost done that kind of like lends itself to a collectathon or a multiple run. So like I do think roguelikes and roguelites can, you know, be in a good spot here, right? Like a Binding of Isaac kind of situation. Um, but yeah, that's what I like to go to because I think it's that it hits it checks a lot of boxes for me of I know I like this thing. Like I'm not looking to like experiment, get disappointed, get like, oh, do I like I don't want to have to think about things. I know I like these games. I know what the gameplay is like. I know what I'm going after. And I'm just continuing down that path. It's a great time when you're sick to just like waste and burn hours. And it's like, oh, I can just collect a lot of leaves or something, you know, like I'm just, I think Chicory, especially too, like I've had so much fun. Like I love games where you can kind of like make your own fun. Like you could easily play Chicory and not care about painting, or you can be like, look at my pretty book. And I was very much a look
Mhm.
at my pretty book Chicory player where
Yeah.
I'm like in
Mhm.
there. I'm Pablo Picasso in those little art challenges. I'm making hyper realistic, you know, again, I'm not actually an artist, so it doesn't look that good, but as good as someone who can't draw, it was like my height, you know, of like making these images. So I think anything like that is what I would recommend to anyone listening. What do you like already? Completionist run that if you're sick.
Love it.
Yeah. Yep, I'm the
Jenny.
same. I actually, whenever I'm sick, I either I play something that I've played before because I just
Mhm.
don't have to think about it. I can go a little bit deeper, like travel. I don't really like story. I just like to sort of do repetitive stuff. When I'm sick, I can do stories as long as it's not a new story. Like I need the familiarity, and so I was talking about nostalgia earlier. I also go for like completionist trophies, achievements. That's what I also aim for if I'm sick and I'm
Mhm.
like replaying something. So for me, games like honestly like Little Gator Game was really big
Yeah.
when I was last sick. I remember I replayed Little Gator Game, got some achievements that I didn't get there, like the Hollow Knights, like Metroidvanias are perfect for that. A Short Hike, Eastward was really nice. That's another
Okay,
one,
yeah, yeah.
especially if you like sort of Zelda, like classic Zelda gameplay. Eastward has two characters, this sort of like grumpy gentleman who gains responsibility of this young girl and is trying to find basically her family, and it's this wonderful delightful story about found family with the lovely pixel art that for me captures that, like it feels very familiar, it feels like something I grew up with, so I can get that comfort and nostalgia, but it's also like a relatively newer indie game, I guess.
Mhm.
Maybe not at this point, gosh, it's been a few years now, but that element of familiarity needs to be there when I'm sick, just so that I don't have to like. I want to be able to think, but not too hard.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
Our next category is indie games to play with a partner or with friends. I actually want to jump over to Janet for this one because I suspect I know what she's going to
Is it
say
just
and I don't want to steal it. So go right on ahead, Janet. What is your partner slash friends game?
is it just Bread and Fred? Is that what
It's just Bread
it's
and
Bread and
Fred.
Fred. Yeah, I like I have like my Steam open, frantically looking for a game that isn't Bread and Fred,
Yeah.
so I can beat the
No.
Bread and Fred allegations. But no, I can't. I mean, I do think it's worth noting that this is always going to be you playing off of someone else, so you have to
Mhm.
account for that, and that's why like that I love that game to play with other people. I while I found a lot of things in Isaiah, but I have not found a Fred to my bread or a bread to my bread because he does not want to finish that game with me. But yeah, I mean, I think well, I guess if I didn't go that, to be honest, and I do think because Bread and Fred is a challenging platformer where you're tethered together. For those who don't know, I've talked about it a bunch of times, but in case first episode or whatever, right? I think if you're not looking for that, which is a very specific flavor of gameplay, that if you do not like it, you're not going to have fun playing it. And the point is to more, and not that the point isn't always to have fun in games, but I think, when it's just us playing individually, there's so many other things you can get out of it. Oh, I love story. I love, like, this is about like the synergy between you and another person. So I think if you don't go with like a puzzle platform, a platformer kind of thing, I like to go with like puzzly stuff. Like, well, is Escape Academy indie? Who owns Escape Academy? Is that an
I'll
indie
go
game?
with it.
Is that
Escape Academy.
okay?
Let's go
Cool.
for
Or
it.
like, there's a lot of escape games in general on Steam. I think those are very very fun to do together because they're often not the most galaxy brained lift, but they are just interesting enough that they are satisfying. And I think what I like about something like Escape Academy specifically is or even which I don't I'm like who owns Operation Tango. Um Games like that sometimes, whether it's like working on your communication skills or exploring communication skills together, there's also sometimes the fun of just different perspectives. Like I love this is like the moving boxes of co-op puzzle experiences when you have like, hey, someone described this thing to me. Like you need to pull levers and there's like, a design and you have to say, oh, the one with the triangle and there's a line through it. It kind of looks like the sun. Like that thing. I think it is very, now that I play more of those games, I think that's very common design, but it hits every time. I have fun with it every single time. So I think anything that offers that can be really fun because I think it highlights how you work with other people, but also how people's perspectives are different. And I think that games that highlight that are enjoyable because they have that deeper level of interpersonal intimacy that you don't necessarily get from like, no offense, but if it's like I'm just playing like Mario with one other person, it's like I don't know. Like sometimes you do glean things from that too, but it's a little bit less like interpersonal. So
Yeah.
I'll go with that if you don't want to, ruin your life on Bread and Fred, which I feel like why wouldn't you? One's called Bread, one's called Fred, like they're friends, like I don't or they're
Like
brothers. I don't
penguins.
remember the relationship. I don't
Like they're
know.
perfect.
They're
They could
buddies.
be lovers. Who knows?
I think I did ask the developer that. I'm like, are these brothers? Are they lovers? What's going on? I forgot what they answered. Try to look that up for people listening.
Okay, Jenny, what are we thinking? Partner and friends.
Yeah, definitely. I will say I love escape room puzzles. I love asynchronous puzzles. TikTok A Tale for Two was like the first thing that came to my mind because that's one of those games. I honestly don't quite remember the story of it, but it was real. I do remember it was really fun. And it's like, again, each player has something different on their screens, but you have to work together to be able to solve the puzzles. Really cool stuff. I think for anyone familiar with like Rusty Lake, which is a series of games that are kind of usually solo escape room style games, they have a co op one that came out a couple years ago called The Past Within, that I believe is a co op title. But I also really love a good, like, I like fun arguing. I love competitiveness. I love,
Uh-huh.
so honestly, things like Lethal Company, Content Warning, um, Among Us is a
Yeah.
classic.
Mhm,
At this
mhm.
point, it's still indie, kind of, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a mega indie, but yeah, I love games that cause the chaos. And honestly, like Bread and Fred was the thing that I wrote down as well as my first one because it's just got that perfect blend of like you will yell at each other, but it's so cute. But yeah.
Why did you let go? I didn't let go. You swing too short.
Yeah.
I found the I did ask them actually about the
Mhm.
relationship.
Oh,
They
I love it.
refuse. This is like not a quote because they didn't say it, but this is directly my experience talking to them. They refuse to acknowledge whether they're friends, siblings, lovers, or something else entirely. They're just two penguins, and they can be whatever you want them to be.
Awesome.
I love that. That's fantastic, Janet.
Mhm.
For me, I'm gonna say something really weird here because as I
Ooh.
was playing through Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, I discovered that it was so good with a partner because you could bounce ideas
Mm.
back and forth from each other. So that's gonna be my number one pick for partners and friends right now. If you have Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, invite someone over to play it with you. Like it doesn't have two-player options or anything. It's just literally the both of you trying. It's the both of you against the game,
You
and it's
know,
fantastic.
I did that with the Case of the Golden Idol. Actually, like a friend and I, we
Yes.
had like a Discord stream up, and it's like we figured out the puzzles together, and one of us was driving, but it was so nice to be able to talk things out as you're trying to figure that out. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
Go reach out to your friends and play games with them. Uh, so let's go ahead with our next category being dealing with heartbreak or a rough time.
Mm.
Um, for this category, there are a couple of ways you can interpret this. So my only real thing that I have down here is like, do I want to cry or do I want to rage? Because sometimes you want one or the other. Sometimes you want one or the other in the same moment. You know what I'm saying? So for me, if I want to cry, it's going to be like Before Your Eyes. It's going to be a really good option for that. Do I want to rage? I actually had to think a lot cuz like I don't usually play a lot of raging games. But for me, I went with Blood Roots on this one.
Mm.
So
Oh,
I could just murder people.
that's very ragey.
Yeah.
And see, I'm a crier. I'm like, if I'm going through something, I want to like have an excuse to let out my feelings for
Uh-huh.
sure, in the form of tears. That's how I cope with things.
Okay. Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
for me, instantly, Florence came to
Oh,
mind. So if you have
perfect.
not played
Yeah.
Florence and you need a good, and what I love about Florence, because this isn't like a heartbreaking, like your heart gets broken, but it does like get mended again by the end of it, you know? So this like that full
Spoilers.
circle, yes, spoilers. Who knows?
She's
Maybe
okay.
or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But by the end, I feel like there's this like there's a sort of closure to it that allows also for like maybe closure if you're going through a breakup feeling.
Yeah.
So I would recommend Florence. And that's a good
Absolutely great choice.
one shot. You can play it, be done, have your feelings, get on get on with your life.
Yeah.
I'm
Janet,
going
how do you deal with heartbreak or a rough time?
can't relate. Only good times here. Honestly, it's all up. No, okay. I honestly, I guess it really depends. I don't think while games can be very emotional, I don't think I turn to games to like cry very much. I feel like that's more of something I can get from like a movie,
Mm,
or like a TV show. So I think I'm going for like pure joy, right? It's like it's
mm.
funny because sometimes I play games just because like, oh, I want to like I catch a vibe and I want to play like an old favorite. But sometimes I'm like, is this a cry for help that I'm not aware of? It might be. Like, I don't know. You know, it's like me like you see me playing Jack and Daxter, it's like, I don't know, check in. Like, but also like I just play a game a lot because I really like it. Like, you know, I have those comfort like media that I go back to. Like I just bought Hitch for $1 today and I
Okay,
was so
yeah.
excited. You know,
Nice.
I've seen that movie a million times. I'm gonna keep watching it. So I think when I think comfort indie experiences, almost similar to that Yoko's Island Express, I'm gonna shout it out to Poi, a game from 2017,
Oh,
a 3D platformer.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's like
Okay.
two little kids, they're adventuring. It's kind of like, I mean, if you've played any old 3D adventure game, it is in that vein of like, right, the Mario 64, the Banjo Kazooie, like that kind of collect-a-thon, you're going around. But I think while definitely like the assets of this game, I feel like are slightly garish and that they feel like a little bit, I don't know, like generic slightly. But I
Mm,
think the gameplay is actually very solid. I had a great time playing this. I play a lot of and again, for me like 3D platformer in general, I'm like, you don't even really have to be good to be honest. I'm gonna be there I'm gonna have a good time regardless. But I do
Mhm.
think genuinely this one was like very solid. Like the jump felt right, the level design was intriguing enough, and yeah, you're just collecting little things and you're hanging out, and I think there's maybe a little bit of some cosmetics as well. So I that's what I go for. It's like feel good, you can get lost in it. It's not that thinky, and you can kind of just like dissociate into joy, and I think that's a fun place to be. So I think that's where it's kind of like giving that like what if I like called in sick today and I just like played video games? Like that's kind of the
Yeah,
vibe I get from like games such as Poi. So I'm gonna give it to Poi for this one.
I love it. And our last category, um, I threw one in here, but I'm gonna cut it.
Okay.
The Netflix slash podcast game. Uh, whose category is this?
This is my category.
Janet. Then
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and throw it to you.
Sure. I was again frantically looking for I'm like, what's the like slightly deeper cut I can get? Because it's like I talk about these games a lot. Like y'all already know Balatro exists. But that's a great podcast game. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go, which this one I think I have talked about on the show before, but I'm gonna go with Cats Organized Neatly.
Mm,
Ooh, yeah.
mhm.
But in general for this category, I think, y'all get the vibes. It's gotta be something that you can do easily while like a TV show or a podcast is there. So ideally, probably not a story game, you know? So it's like something that
Mhm.
so I prefer something that has like zero story or very skippable story. So I do tend to lean on I think the puzzle genre or like I don't know, an adventure or like a chill, like kind of okay, I can do this almost on autopilot. So I'm going with Cats Organized Neatly, which is a puzzle game where you are trying to I don't know the name for this genre, but it's one of those where you have like, let's say 16 squares and you're trying to like fill them with the right shapes. It's like, okay, I have like 16 squares and 3 pieces or 5 pieces, 6 pieces. How do I organize the pieces so they all fit in the squares? I'm sure there's a name for that because there's like a million games like that. But what's really cool about Cats Organized Neatly is the pieces. They're little cats and they have different shapes. And there's even like a little where I think this game kind of adds that extra fun layer where it's like it's in the details. Like when you have a simple game, when you hit those details, it's like yes. There's like I'm pretty sure there's like little meows when you like slot them in or whatever, but there's also
Yes,
like
there are.
Oh,
little
cute.
personalities that they have. And again, like it works so well for this. And I think they have one for dogs either coming out or that came out.
Mhm.
It fits a little bit more canonically, I feel like better with cats because cats are always in different shapes. They're always kind of laying in different places. So it just fits so well for cats. And that's it. 2D puzzle game, very simple. There's like 80 levels across the whole things. All the cats are different shapes and they have like you can like unlock new kind of as the levels progress, you'll unlock new cats which are new shapes. There's also like different challenges thrown in there of like, oh, maybe they'll put like a fern or different plants in different spots to kind of make the shaping a little bit more complex. And the designs of the cats are really cool. Like they're all like slightly differently designed and they just these are just like good these are just good cats. If you like a simple puzzle and or you like cats, like I can't even say that I want to meet the person who doesn't like this game because I don't want to meet you. And
Yeah.
if I know you and you don't like this game, keep it to yourself because I don't want to have to warp my view of who I thought you were. This is a delightful little game. It's great. I love it. Podcast, no podcast, you're gonna have a good time. Cats Organized Neatly. It'll cure what ails you.
Um, I love that when I was hearing Janet talk about it, I was like, A Little to the Left is also another
Yes.
great
Hell
one of
yeah.
these
Mhm, mhm.
games.
Is that your pick?
Um,
Or are you going with
no,
something else?
for me, when I have a podcast game, for some reason I like that game to be like a really long experience,
Mm.
something that like
Mhm.
I have a tendency, and I think a lot of people do when you're in the like middle third of a game, it starts to like stretch out a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I want a little bit more. Um, so I was thinking of Moonstone Island is probably a really
Mm.
good game for this. Like I
Mhm.
understand what's happening. There's not a ton of dialogue, especially when you're just in the middle of like checking out different islands. For anyone who doesn't know what this is, you're kind of like a witch apprentice, and you're going around and like it's kind of Pokemon and kind of
Mhm.
Stardew.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it's a really good game when you're just out and about, like catching spirits and putting them in your barn and like,
This looks
making
so
friends.
good.
And it is real good. It is so good. And so like it's good to play just listening to it as well because it's a lot of fun. But I think the other thing for me are going to be like kind of mindless violence games.
Mm.
And the one that I really, really enjoy going through and you don't think too much about is called Axolotl.
Oh yeah.
Mhm,
Axolotl.
mhm.
It's AK Olotl. Um, because you're an axolotl and you're shooting things and
And is
it's
it an
really funny.
AK-47 that you start with, or is
I
it
think
like
so.
okay?
I think you
Yep.
I
start with an
imagine you
AK.
have to. It's called
AK
AK.
Axolotl.
God, it's so
Axolotl.
hard to say.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, it's always hard to verbally tell people about this game because you're like, the title's really clever, but it sounds like
I
axolotl.
think we
So
need another episode idea again. Workshopping live on the show. We need a
do it.
a I don't want to say word because I don't want to be mean necessarily, but there needs to be a conversation about some of these game titles because like it's like remember when VV came
Yeah,
out? Great
yeah,
Yeah.
game,
yeah, 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 yeah.
great game.
Great game. Great game.
Really hard to say. Still don't know the name of it. Still don't really
Yeah.
remember it. Like,
Mhm.
Another
and
really
AAA does
great
this too.
game.
This isn't just an
An-
indie thing, but
yeah, indies do this a
yeah,
lot.
it needs to be a
Great
lot.
game. I absolutely love and I adore,
Yeah.
and you should go play this because it recently got like a consoles edition. Is
Mhm.
Let's Revolution.
Yeah.
Not because it's hard to say, but because Let's and Revolution both have exclamation
Ooh, you
marks
know what?
after them.
Okay, we can do
Don't do that.
best
Don't do
So
games,
this.
hard, yeah.
worst names. That way, it's like yes, we're
Best
kind of
games,
shading
worst
you,
names.
Yeah.
but we are still giving because again, these are good. Like I don't
Like,
want to just pick
great
like
game.
a whack game
Great
with a
game.
whack name. Like we could just leave that alone. We don't got to bring that
Right.
up. Yeah, great game, best games, worst name. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Look forward to that in the future, everybody.
3 years from now, when there's a dead time.
Jenny, what's your podcast game?
Um, yeah, I similar to y'all again, don't need a ton of dialogue. I need to just be able to like be able to listen so the game can't have sound cues. So like again, like Animal Well, can't play that because
No,
there's
yeah.
sound cues in that game.
Mm-hmm.
So things that don't have sound cues that you can still feel like you're making also good progress in. Honestly, like Vampire Survivors would be just I was thinking about, hey, I have
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
not played Vampire Survivors while listening to podcast. I should. House Flipper, is that indie? Technically,
Yeah.
I
Get
think
it.
was thinking,
so.
yeah, House Flipper, like power washing, like those kind of
Oh
games for me
yeah.
are
Yeah. Yeah.
perfect for podcast listening. Um, and I also wanted to shout this is like an older one, but I love city builders. Like the chill city builders are my podcast games primarily at this point in time. Like that's just the phase I'm in. So things like Dwarf Romantic, Townscaper, Cloud Gardens, Islanders, a lot of these games are basically sort of city builders in the sense that you have buildings, but they essentially give you like a certain amount of points. Those points are allocated to like get buildings into your inventory. You place them. You have to sort of place them optimally to get the best points, to get more buildings and more tiles. And I think it's just enough thinking where I can like sit and ponder it and try to optimize and min max, but not so much that it's going to distract me from the content that I'm listening to. So I love a good chill city builder. So yeah, those would be
Yeah.
what I pick.
That's jogged my memory, and someone correct me if I'm incorrect on this, but I believe Tiny Glade has a demo coming out on the
Hmm.
30th.
Yes.
And that is exactly that kind of game. If that's the kind of game you like,
Hmm.
please check that demo out when it comes out because I'm so excited.
Me too.
So yeah, those are the official indie council games of these categories. I'm glad we could help everybody out for anything you might be looking for. From games to games, let's talk about what we've been playing. Jenny, we didn't get to hear from you last week, so let's talk about what you've been playing.
Yeah. So
If you're allowed to say more.
I am allowed to say more. I can't go into details until next episode, but I can say
Okay.
what I've been playing at least in the broadest sense. So I was out last week because I had the opportunity, thanks to 11-Bit Studios, to go try out The Alters and Frostpunk 2. Just to give you I should actually just tell you what they have on Steam, so that way it's like definitely public. And
Definitely didn't break embargo.
definitely not breaking embargo. But Frostpunk 2 sequel, can tell because the two. But it's set in it's a city builder set in a world where basically there's an eternal snow, eternal blizzards, not really ideal for living situations. And so you're trying to build out this city, survive. A lot of it's similar. I'll talk more about the details, but that's coming out July 25th, which is my birthday. So that's kind of
Ooh.
exciting. Um, and then the altars, which this I think what's really interesting is like Indica came out, and that for me was like a really different idea. I think we haven't seen games touch on things like Indica. The altars is similar, where the concept is something I don't think I've really seen a game explore. This is a very emotional sci-fi game. It features adventure, survival, base building, and you play this character named Jan, who it can create alternate versions of himself to help survive and escape this planet that he's on. So very like story driven sci-fi. I'm excited to get into details and share my thoughts, but that's primarily what I've been playing. In the midst of travel, I attempted to start and continue a bunch of games. I because I haven't had the chance to really dig in to
Mhm.
like Little Kitty, so cute, love it. I don't think I can say anything different than what everyone is saying, where it's just a joyful experience. Like you cannot help but smile as you play. It is my ideal cat game, so just so happy that that's out finally. Um, Animal Well, I know y'all talked more deeply about that last week. I have been playing it. I have personally been very much
Don't laugh at me,
enjoying
Jill.
it.
I
I
was
know.
like, no,
I
I'm not going to say
was
anything. You talked very
like, no,
deeply.
yeah.
You're like, someone got stuck. Okay, all
I,
right, all right.
I didn't name any names. I didn't
We didn't
say.
say anything, Janet. I think you got
Um,
something
Yeah,
inside.
I'm
yeah.
just projecting. That's all. Continue.
But yeah, I've really enjoyed Animal Well. I think the enjoyment for me has the game itself, I think, is really strong. For me, again, game of the year contender personally. The most joy I've gotten out of it, though, is seeing the community that is formed around it and seeing the ways that people are collaborating outside of the game to figure out some of these puzzles that have been embedded. I think
Mhm.
that's really where my joy comes from. And it's just enhanced my enjoyment of the game and has me personally more invested in places where perhaps if no one else was into it and no one else was playing it, I probably would have fallen off. So I think there's this element of like community excitement that's been bolstering my enjoyment of the game for sure. But I still am digging in. I have been really loving my time with it. Um, and I started Lorelei, loving it so far. I'm just not in it very deep. And then I started Venture to the Vial, which
Mhm.
I am still at the same position I was a couple weeks ago, where I'm like, I haven't gotten far enough to see really where the depth of it lies. So far, the atmosphere is cool. It looks really nice. It feels pretty decently good to play. I still haven't seen what is beyond the demo, essentially. So I'm really
Yeah.
trying to dig in this week, and I'll probably come back with more thoughts next time.
I do want to have a little more thoughts on Venture to the Vial, but
Mhm.
before I do, Venture to the Vial is shared on another person's list, and
Yeah.
that person is currently not here. So Mike, we're going to take this opportunity to mess with you. Um, Mike has the audacity to have 3 games on his list that he's been playing, and not be on the show. So what I want to do is all of us are we're going to read out what his list contains, and then we're going to decide what his first, second, and third favorite games on his list are.
I think we also
Um,
should say what we think about them as if we're Mike, having no
yeah,
idea what Mike actually thinks or how
as
much
if
Mike has
we're
played.
Mike. Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone do their Mike impressions. Okay, so on Mike's list, we have Crow Country, Little Kitty Big City, and Venture to the Vial. Okay, as Mike, what do I think about Little Kitty Big City?
He's just a little lad. He's
He's
just
just a little
yeah,
guy.
he's just a
He's
little
just a little
guy.
guy. He's just a little guy. I got this tattoo of him.
Yeah.
That's a
It's
good
right
one.
next to all my other little guys.
Yeah, I mean, people
Um,
who know the show know I love a good void.
I
Black
love Good
cat,
Void.
you know?
Here's Harvey.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little guy. What's not to like? Yeah, but
Sweet
no,
guy.
but genuinely, I am enjoying it.
Genuinely,
Genuinely, I am enjoying
absolutely
it.
love it.
Yes.
Yeah. The music hits. Like,
Mhm.
you don't know all the stuff that I know about music, but it's got levels, you know?
I gotta be honest. I don't think I like it. as much as you guys do. I know I still like
Yeah.
it. I still like it. No, I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just
No.
it's not quite. I think I need to give it a little more time.
Yeah.
I'm not done with it yet.
Not done with it.
I am enjoying it, but I'm kind of waiting to see if it does for me what it's done for all of you. So
Right.
that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah. We're glad to have Mike's opinion on Little Kitty Big City.
Uh-huh.
Crow Country. What do we think Mike thinks about Crow Country?
For all you PS1 sickos out there, this is for you.
This is for you. Love it.
You freaks.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game's rad as hell. It's
Yeah.
not going to be everyone's game. I totally get it. Like it is old. It is that, PS1. It's Resident Evil. But for someone like me, this is exactly what I was looking for. Okay, well, I should back up. It's not exactly what I was looking for. The combat, it's not quite as difficult, which I think could be cool. It's kind of allowing for more people to check it out. I mean, you guys know I'm tatted up with the crab, so it's like, obviously I'm down for that. They are working on a hard mode as well, so I think that's gonna be a lot of fun when it drops. And yeah, I am eating this game up. I love it. I just 100%ed it twice while we were recording. I
sent out 20 tweets about it as well.
Yeah, I just dropped 2 videos, 1 podcast. Stay tuned.
I've been saying for years that anytime you're in a public space, you just want to throw your hand into the trash. You never know what you're going to find. So I'm glad that there's finally media out there that supports me.
That was honestly my favorite part of what we've done so far. That's really funny.
That's really good.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike. We do love you. Okay, so I think, in all reality, Mike probably likes Venture to the Vile the most. Crow Country and then Little Kitty. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm going Crow Country. I'm going the order they're in. Crow Country, Little Kitty, Venture to the Vile. I think we have to talk about, we have to hear what Mike thinks of Venture to the Vile.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I am also in Venture to the Vile and I'm not very far. But as far as a game as a craft, it's not as high as a lot of these other games that we're talking about.
That's what I thought. I thought like maybe I haven't played it, but I feel like maybe the feel isn't there, but the atmosphere is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so
it's
then
definitely
maybe it would be lower.
Really cool, sort of like Tim Burton-esque weirdness with it's like weird cozy, and I'm super about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I need to wait and see if it really takes me and grabs me, but it's a great game if you're into that sort of vibe and you are looking for something. So we'll have to see next week what Mike really thinks about all of these games. But I think we nailed it.
Yeah, I think we heard what he thinks about these.
Yeah, Mike was here.
It was nice of him.
The audio listeners have no idea that he wasn't here.
Yeah. Janet, what have you been playing?
Oh man, I guess I'll start with we'll use Mike as like the tether point to everyone else's stuff. So I'll start with Crow Country. I played like an hour or 2 of it. This is a game. So many things with this game. One, now I feel like I'm doing an impression of myself, so I kind of in my own head. But this game is kind of sold as like, if you are an old school Resident Evil stan, do I have the game for you? And this game kind of made me realize I don't think I like old Resident Evil as much as I thought I did. I don't know. Okay, the game is like totally fine. Like it's got some cool puzzles. It's got a great environmental art. And as I mentioned when I was pretending to be Mike, the combat is really simple, and they even have like I think they call it like exploration mode where there's like no combat. So definitely like as someone that loves the puzzle of Resident Evil and is like, I'll do the combat, but like I'm not like it's I enjoy like more of some of its parts than like the individual pieces. I felt like sure that'd be cool, but I think I do kind of miss a little bit of the stress of like an old Resident Evil when you go down like a hallway. It's like, oh my god, like I gotta be on my P's and Q's. I gotta like really manage my inventory. And I think I found myself which this isn't really the game's fault because it's like I'm kind of imposing my own thoughts on what Resident Evil is. But I kind of found myself missing some of the things that I had gotten used to in Resident Evil. Things like the tension of roaming hallways. Things like the inventory management. I'm not spinning stuff into squares? Why not? I was so surprised that wasn't included because it's such an homage to that style of game. But putting that aside for a second, I think one of the things that I don't really love about the structure of Crow County, is it county or country? It's county, right? Not
No,
country. It's county. I
it
wrote
is
country in
county.
here. So did
County.
Mike. Why? I always mix that up.
It
Whatever.
was Mike's fault.
Crow County. One thing I don't like about it is I think because it is so small, in
Hold on. Is it? Oh, now
I think it
I'm
is.
going back
I
and
guess
forth.
I think it's county.
country.
I guess look
Is it
look it up
country?
while I talk about the size of this game.
Okay, I'm
So
doing
it's fairly small in terms of like hours and density.
Country.
Yeah, it's country.
It is country.
It is
Oh,
country.
Really? Okay, well, there you go.
Your unconscious mind knew it, and
Yes.
then you were just
Crow. I
second-guessing yourself.
probably Googled it before. Anyway, Crow Country. So apologies there. I think because it's so like short in scope and hours, one of the issues becomes you like immediately can kind of see everything at once, and then you're just kind of forced to piece it together. So by that I mean it's, you know, one of the first puzzles you get has to do with like this like witch in the woods or something like that as the hint. And it's like, okay, you like know kind of what you need to do. And I think there's a really cool hint system they have in the game too, where you talk to like a fortune teller crow. That like there's like really great atmosphere stuff with like the amusement park stuff. Like I love all of that. But I think like it kind of feels like almost, so the thing I like about Resident Evil is exploring the spaces and tinkering with funky, weird mansion stuff. And the thing I don't like about Crow Country is that I feel like it's more of an escape room design where you're sort of set up with like a couple little areas and they're like, okay, you have what you need, put it together, but you can kind of only solve this one piece. And then the next piece you can solve after you solve your first piece. And it feels very much like a game of, okay, you can't eat your chicken till the rice is done. And I'm like, well, isn't this supposed to be kind of I kind of want more of a cohesive meal and an experience to kind of like linger around. And I feel like Crow Country is a little bit more linear and smaller in that sense. And I wanted to be able to, I think, meander around the space a bit more and kind of feel like I'm encountering things in a more spread out fashion, because that's sort of, I think, what I'm used to and what I like about Resident Evil. So I think that's the thing that was a bit of a disconnect for me. Where I ultimately land on this is maybe I'll finish it, but if I don't finish it, I won't really mind. Like it's kind of in that, oh, okay, like it's cool, like it's not bad. I didn't connect with it in a deeper way as I was kind of expecting to. So that's where I land on Crow Country. But did anyone else play it? Why do I think someone else played this? It's just me.
I played it.
Yeah, you okay?
Yeah.
Did you
like?
What were the vibes off of that? I guess really quick.
I mean, sort of the same. Like, I think if I were going to pick to play a game that has Resident Evil as its inspiration, I would rather go Lorelei and the Laser Eyes than Crow Country. Personally,
I picked the wrong Resident Evil indie game. There's usually not so many options. Fair. Should I just go
So
down?
Yeah.
Are we bouncing around? Should I continue? Just go. I can
Just
go ahead, Jenny.
Just go.
I didn't take some Cozy Caravan. It's in early access right now.
Yeah.
This one I was like really hot on when I first started it. I was like, I love this game. And then I was like, by the end of my section of the stream, I'm like, I think this game has potential that has not been realized yet. So the idea of this game, and I, really want to shout out the team for just having such their hand on the pulse. Like, I love when I play a cozy game and you can just tell that these people like eat, sleep, breathe, and sweat like the cozy, wholesome vibes, not just the aesthetic, because obviously like the game looks cute. To set it up, Cozy Caravan is a game where you are playing as like having a little caravan. You have like a little carriage attached to this bee that can kind of drag it around, which is adorable. And you're essentially going from like town to town, area to area, collecting resources, helping like the townspeople, and ultimately you are trying to gain things to sell at your little caravan sale stand that you have on the weekends. And you can like sell like stuff as raw materials, like, hey, I just have a carrot, take it or leave it. Or you can like make stuff like salads. I played really just like the 2 hours, so I didn't get into some of the deeper systems, which that's another thing I want to shout out. There is a chance that like getting further into it, like sometimes these kind of more sim, like salesy, grindy, like sometimes they need like a little bit more time for you to like get invested and like to like, get into like what makes them special. I think the number one thing for me with this game that didn't quite connect, well, it's kind of a couple things. One, the dialogue is very repetitive, which I don't need story in these games personally. I know some people really love, I love the personalities of like the villagers. Like I kind of am more just for like, I'm trying to build my mansion and like you
Yeah.
guys can do what you do. I'm building my mansion. But I think the reason that the repetitive dialogue really stuck out to me negatively here is that there's so many opportunities to talk to characters. I like came across a town where it's like there's like 1 dozen plus characters sitting around. They're like eating pie. I'm like, "What's up, guys?" And they're all telling me the same thing, like slightly different, like very slightly different. Which brings me to my second issue, which is at the current 2 hour mark, there is no like quest log, and they kind of joke that there like isn't going to be like in the game. They're like, "Should we write this down?" No, you write it down. I don't want to write it down. We won't write it down at all. And I'm like, haha, is the quest log coming later? I really, really need you to put a quest log because some of the things you get to do are like, you'll meet someone and they're like, oh, I have this, James still has my book. He's living in, you know, the cozy grove. And I'm like, cool. And in my head, I'm thinking about that. And it's like, I wish I could like track that and kind of go after things a bit more. And then that brings me to like the third thing that I didn't like, which I think this is kind of the worst thing, but also I think maybe in a way the easiest fix. They have a lot of like rhythm game integration in what you do. Like you can cut an apple, and it's like they have the structure of when you're like cranking a generator in The Last of Us, where it's kind of that thing that bounces up and down, where it's like, okay, you're filling the meter, but there's not like enough visual or haptic feedback to like make me feel like oh, am I doing it right? Like, did I get the timing right? You do kind of have like a light visual with it, like it turns green, but I feel like intensely disconnected from the rhythm game portion of the design. And it's something I've never felt playing a game before. And I'm like, I think there's just like, I didn't realize what was like, sometimes something is done so often that you forget how much effort goes into it. And I think in those like kind of slight little rhythm game moments, it's like, oh yeah, every game has like the overcut, yeah. But it's like, oh, I feel like kind of disconnected. So I think they need to like if I were to like, consult on this or something, I'd be like, oh, I need more of like a connection between that. Even stuff like the way you pick up crops, it's like you just pick them up with like A, that's fine, got no beef with that. But then like you get a shovel. I'm like, great, something else to do. And then it's like you just hit A and then you just like do a shovel animation. I'm like, no, like give me the monotony of like I'm putting it into the soil and So yeah, I think the idea is so rad. And again, it's early access, and this is also why like I don't love playing early access, just because it's like I'm saying all this they could actually turn it, like they're not that far off. Like I really loved a lot of the ideas here, and like you're going around and you're like doing different things, and you can the character design is really cute. Like I'm a cow and I'm a strawberry cow and I got a cardigan on. Like they're right there. They are right there into like a banger title. But there are a couple key components I think missing right now that sort of brought my excitement to a halt for Cozy Caravan. So that's me and Cozy Caravan. I honestly talked about that way longer than I thought. But like it's just there's a lot going on in it. And it's kind of like what we talked about before, where there's so much depth in these like, that looks like a cute little game. It's like, let's break down like the systems of this thing. But that's Cozy Caravan. I think I'm gonna save Indica for when I beat it, because I'm 20 minutes away from the end. So I'm just gonna toss that to next week.
Oh dang, yeah.
It's like,
watch for next week.
I know I was like I'm recording a podcast right after, and I was like, oh, I can't beat it, and then it's been days, and I like really want to finish it. The last one I want to shout out is Bakura. Bakura? I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's Bokura. This is a like little like multiplayer game. It's multiplayer mandatory, 2-player puzzle game. It's an adventure game, and it actually came out last year. I didn't realize how recent it was. I feel like I'd eyed this for a couple times because it's a multiplayer puzzle game, and I like playing those with my partner. We were looking for things to play yesterday, and we like resurfaced this from our library. Like, oh yeah, we never played this. Let's check it out. Pretty solid. I'm gonna finish it. Again, it's not like the most hardcoreest of recommendations, but I think it is interesting enough, and I'm enjoying my time enough that I'm like, yeah, I'm down for it. Because again, there's not that many games that like kind of offer this kind of gameplay. And I think something it does that's really cool is so it is like casual, like 2D, like side scroller structure. It is a lot of box moving puzzles, but then it has this really fun angle of like you're going through this adventure as like two friends, and then there's like this little like twisty twitch, which the twist is kind of given away by like the art and the trailer. But like I kind of just went into this like, oh, I don't know, this looks like it's a game, 2 people, it looks fine, like cute, whatever. And I downloaded it. And I didn't really look into any of the other stuff. It had just been on my list for forever, and it has like a fun kind of different people have different perspectives because you play it like it's not local, it's like online. So it's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, what does your like setup look like?" It's like, "Oh, my setup's different." It's like, "Oh, that's interesting." And then I'm only like an hour or like 90 minutes into it. I think it's like a 5-hour game. And there have been some hints at some fun like narrative things they're doing as well, where like there was a moment where it's like it shows, like, the mic symbol with, like, an X through it, and it's like, "No talking during this part. You guys are gonna do your own thing." And, like, I kinda went off and did,
Oh.
like, this little story
Mm.
moment, and then, like, my partner did the same, and then we came back together and we're like, "Are we supposed to talk about what we did?" I'm like, "I think we can." And then we, like, told each other what had occurred, and I think that's probably the strongest component of the game, like, that moment for me where I was like, "Oh," like I'm like, "Well, this is what I was told." He's like, "Really? I was told this." I'm like, "They told me this." He's like, "Oh, that changes everything." So I think there's enough, like, there's enough here that I think if you like those kind of co-op experiences that you'll enjoy this. And there's something to be said about, like, yes, it's a little simplistic, but that can also be kind of a strength in some ways too, because it's like, all right, you're not always looking to have like a galaxy brain moment. Like, I think it's a nice little adventure with some interesting story components, and it's nice to look at. So I'm having a good time with it. It served us well yesterday, and I'm excited to finish it up. So yeah, but Bakura. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Bokura.
I think it looks like
Bokura.
Bokura. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad because I actually recently was looking at this game and
Oh,
thinking
hell
about
yeah.
picking it up, so I'm that's, like, such perfect timing
Yes.
to hear of that it was, like, a pretty solid
Yay. Yeah,
experience,
let
so,
me know
yeah,
what you
I'll be
think.
nervous.
It's, like,
Yeah.
very and it is inoffensive at worst and, like, kinda interesting at best because I do think it has
Okay.
some cool stuff going on with some of what it's doing, and I'm excited to see, like, how the story's gonna unfold, which I feel like I don't normally say for,
Mhm.
like, a game like this, and even though the dialogue's kinda clunky, I don't know if it's, like, a translation clunkiness or, like, a how it was written clunkiness, but the general plot, I'm very intrigued by. So, yeah, if you pick it
Cool.
up, let me know.
Okay. Everybody go down, go immediately, go pick this game up and then tell Janet how you feel about it.
Yeah, why not? Is everyone not doing that for all their games already? Like,
All the games we've mentioned? Yeah.
get on it, audience. You have 32 games to play.
Right now, and you have to finish them all before next week. Um, for me this week, I've been playing the number one thing I want to point out, and I want to make this sort of like you have to go and check this game out. It is so a lot. Haunty. I have
Oh,
had
hell
my
yeah.
eye on Haunty
Mhm.
Hell
forever.
yes.
It
Mhm.
is
So I
I've
haven't
not
started it
finished
yet,
with
but I'm
it.
excited to play it.
So like even if you're just getting to the beginning, like first of all, the visuals of this game are unlike anything else I've ever played. It's essentially like woodblock art. So like if you don't know how woodblock art is made, they take a block of wood and they like scrape the design out of it and then you usually put some kind of ink and you have a paper. So it looks like that in motion and I cannot believe how beautiful it is. And they have light and dark as kind of an element of not only the visuals but also what's going on narratively. Um it's so so beautiful and it blows my mind every single time I'm just playing the game. So anytime
Mhm.
you're just in the middle of anything, you're like, I cannot believe what I'm looking at. Haunting might be one of the visually most stunning games of this year. We'll see. I'm also feeling a lot. Like it's not a
Yeah.
huge
Mhm.
yeah, it's not a huge spoiler to say like Haunty is about death. Um you start out and you have just died and you don't know why you're dead and you don't know who you are and you don't know where you're going. Um and you meander around. They have a really great way of teaching you how things work as your dead self. Um, and the art is so funny, and the visuals again. There's humor, and uh, it's so so great. And then you get to a point where like you meet an angel. And you meet an angel, and the angel transforms from an angel that we would think kind of when you think of angel immediately, and then it goes to like biblically
Oh,
accurate
yes, I
angel,
love
and then it
Yeah.
biblically accurate angel.
freaks you so far out and they recognize that you're freaked out and none of this is through dialogue so they kind of switch back to different angel looks and I'm like oh my god I love this and the angel takes you through like an entire cavernous like it does the beautiful like zoom out to the
Mhm.
big like field of hourglass sand going through hourglass and they walk you to a tower and you begin to ascend and it's the most beautiful uplifting like sky is a really good touch point for the feeling that you're
Mhm.
feeling like you are going up and you're seeing everyone kind of frolic and angels playing music, and it's so beautiful, and then you're so felt and like caught up in it, and then all of a sudden chains pull you back down to the earth or afterlife, whatever we are. And it's like I've been playing this game for like 15 minutes and I already feel so much about what is happening. Um, as you are going through the afterlife and trying to figure stuff out, you're sort of collecting star pieces to put
Mhm.
constellations back together. And as you put constellations back together, you learn more and more about who you are as a person. The very first one is I think me as a child, and they're getting a bunny as like a present,
I'm
and you're
scared.
like, "Oh my god, this is the best thing I've ever seen. I love that bunny already, and I am feeling so happy, but also really sad because, like, I know I'm dead and I can't interact with this bunny anymore." So, like, there's a lot of ways it's going back and forth on all of the feelings that you should be feeling. So,
Mm.
everyone go and play Haunty. Like, I'm serious. It's so amazing so far. A lot of the things that I had problems with for like demos, like getting lost was especially easy. They have really fantastically changed things up so that
Oh, sweet.
there are things that
That's
point you
good.
in directions. There are little like collector thingies that like, oh, I want to make sure I'm collecting these, so I follow it off and like, oh, that's where I'm supposed to go. So they've tightened a lot of stuff up from the last time I've played it, and I really, really appreciate it. So I also, speaking of ghosts, I wanna shout out Love Ghosty.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh my gosh, Jenny. This was
so
actually sent to me, I should say, disclaimer, by Mike, at as in his position as Vicarious PR. Um,
Wait,
it
Mike has a
is
job?
so it is so charming, and I don't like to use that word for indies, but it's got a lot of charm and hope and love and also just silliness. Essentially, you've just died.
I'm sensing a theme
Uh,
here, Jill.
it's a theme,
True.
and it turns out the afterlife is you are a ghost matchmaking people. That's it. That's what you're doing. You get presented a house. Which, by the way, they make the funniest joke about like, "Oh, now that I'm dead, I can finally like afford a house." And I forget how they say it, but I'm like, "Oh my god, that's dark." But like, I feel it, you know. Um, and you kind of pick the residents of your house, and then your days, you have action points as a ghost. Apparently, you can only interact with things so many times. Your days consist of attempting to get these people in the house together. So, like, you leave gifts and you say it's from other people, and then you have to decide what your different characters would
Mm.
like. So, for me, the characters I picked are like a frog prince, and like a dark diva, and I'm trying to get them together. And then I also picked the like emo giraffe
Mhm.
and like
Oh,
super cute happy penguin, and I'm trying to get them together. And
I
I'm like,
love the emo
okay,
giraffe.
oh man, the giraffe is so good. So I'm like, okay, I just I left a present for the penguin, which was a bowl of soup. And like at the beginning, you don't really know a lot about your character, so you're sort of guessing.
I love this shop.
Um, but apparently the penguin loves soup. Soup is great. And so she started falling in love with my emo giraffe. I'm like, this is perfect. So then I set up a calendar date for them. I don't really know. I'm not gonna ask how they get tricked into going on these dates, but um, for them to go karaokeing. And it turns out he was awesome at karaokeing, even though he's emo, he's super into music. So they start falling deeper and deeper in love. I'm like, yes. And that's just you go around and you read their diaries to make sure that all your plans are working out exactly correctly. You can buy things off of the ghost internet. So that's a thing. Uh to be able to get better gifts for everybody, and you can have them level up their happiness as well as their sort of like relationship meter by doing different like chores or like meditating or whatever. So as their happiness grows, the house starts to upgrade in a way. It
Hmm.
like they start to move in and make it homier. Maybe they put a plant in, maybe they put a mirror in. So, and then as a couple of days go by, your ghost mentor comes by and checks to see how you've done, and based off of how much relationship progress you've made or happiness progress, you get points, and you put those points into like getting more action points or unlocking the decoration mode. So now I can decorate my house, and it's
Hell
just like
yeah.
Mhm.
this is what I want. This is what I want to play. Like it's happy and it's funny and it's just a great thing to kind of have on your mind, you know? So go play Love Ghosty.
Do you know when it comes out? Is it
I don't. It is
when's the
but you can play it right now cuz it's a demo. There's a demo out
Oh,
right
okay.
now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is
Um
an updated or this is a new demo than the
that
one that
sounds
was
correct.
previously out. Yeah.
Yeah. And besides that, I want to quickly shout out a couple of things. Enter the Chronosphere is fantastic. Go play that. It is a roguelike. You're playing with time. Every time you step, the world moves. So
Hmm.
everyone's moving
Mhm.
as far as you're moving. It's very clever and very fun, and I blew myself up way too many times. Oros is out today as we are recording. It is a meditative AF game that is a puzzler where you are just trying to like there is a ring with a thing that goes around, and you're trying to get that thing to touch all the points that it asks you to, but it's in different configurations. So you're like moving the ring and
Mm,
stretching
mhm.
it and twisting it
Ah.
around to like
Cool.
and then when you get it right, all of the things make little ding sounds. So it's like a melody and it's just like, "Oh, this is good." And it's real hard to stop. Little Known Galaxy is the game I shouted out earlier that
Mm,
Jenny, I hope you have this on your to playlist because
yes.
we're essentially looking at Stardew in space.
I have
Like
not started it yet, but it is I have the worst backlog right
backlog.
now.
Yeah.
But yes, it is on there.
Um, I I am sure that your stream for this game will be very different from mine because I like in the first day I met like 3 people and I'd already accused 2 of them of murder or various conspiracies. So
What? Oh my gosh.
so that's how I play these games. Um right in that same stream I played Drill Core, which was shown during the Little Build um
Tiny Build. Oh wait,
presentation.
do they call it
Mhm.
Little Build? Like their presentation?
Tiny Build.
Okay, cool.
Sorry. Tiny Build
'Cause I was like,
presentation
maybe
that
that's what
was
it's called. I was
this
like,
week.
hold on,
I
maybe
mean, that
not.
would be kinda
Hold on,
cute,
Right?
honestly.
it would be. Um, and I picked it up. It's got a demo out right now. You can go check that out. I ended up playing this for like over 2 hours. I meant to just check it, but it's you are I like cut to the chase. You're the bad guy. You're like a terrible person. You own a company that
First red
essentially
flag.
says, "Hey, planets out there. Are you having planetary problems? Are your like magnetic fields off or whatever? We've got people who drill to the core of your Earth or whatever planet and fix things. But really what you're doing is you're getting people in there, you drill down, they're trying to get to a certain depth. And to get to a certain depth, you have to find a resource that can power your drill. But of course, there are monsters. Um, and when you get to that certain depth, you blow up the planet and steal all the resources you took from that planet, and you
What?
go to the next planet. So, like, you're constantly getting more resources, and that's your, like, progression system,
Hmm. And no one's
but
alive
every
to
planet you
leave a Yelp
visit
review about the
Mm.
company.
Yeah.
it's so interesting, and it's like there's a day and night phase. So during the day, you are creating like workers and you can build barracks to get more workers to make people go faster and you can upgrade people and they go down and they're like chipping away and drilling and things and getting all the resources and you have guards to keep people safe from monsters. But during the night phase, no one can do anything. You have to build turrets because there are like giant bug creatures that try to destroy your rig, and once your rig is gone, everyone's gone and you fail. So it's a day and night phase of like day one during the day it's like a management drilling sim, and during the night it is sort of a like protect the base kind of game. So And you have to share resources between both. So all the resources you find during the day, you're like, oh dang, do I want to like upgrade my turret, or do I want to keep that because I really need to upgrade how fast my diggers are working in the day? So it's like constant push
Mm.
and pull of like, please fucking find a ruby. I need a ruby so bad. And it's so good. So that is Drill Core. Go check that out. And I also want to shout out Dungeons of Hinterberg. I'm still in love with Venture to the Vile. We'll talk about more next week. But that's everything we've been playing. So that's the end of this week's council. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Sorry, Mike, for having you join us without perhaps you knowing about it. Well,
I'm
you can
not
follow
sorry.
the. Not sorry. That was
Not
really
sorry.
funny.
Sorry
You
for
can
the vague
find us on.
apology. So
Yeah, I retract my apology. You can follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The Indie Council has its own socials at Indie Council _ on Twitter and at the Indie Council everywhere else. But this session is closed. Go play some indies.